we get older and move on, retire or whatever, that we are training our young people to take our places, and they would be already trained with leadership training and civic engagement ideas so that they could take over from us. We have at least a couple of our board members here. Would you raise your hand, board members? Oh, okay. So we have a summer program. The summer program is going to start on June the 5th, and we need some volunteers to help the children with reading particularly. The children are behind due to COVID, staying at home. Many of our children were not up to the level that they needed to be before COVID, and COVID has affected them. So we're looking for volunteers to help them with reading. Summer program goes for 9 weeks, 9 weeks. And what we would like ideally is to have one tutor with 2 children. That's really going to help them. One tutor, two children. So we're going to have about 30 to 40 for this site. We have several different sites, but the volunteers need to have their backgrounds provided. And we are working with the school system to make sure that we have some training for the trainers. You know, the way children used to learn when I was in school is not the way that they want them to read now. And so we have to have a little bit of training from the school system so that we make sure the children are reading and are in alignment with what happens in the classroom. This way there is no gap and there's no confusion. So please sign up. There is a QR code, and let us know as soon as possible. Summer school starts June the 5th. And so we need to get those training in. So we need to get the background check done before, and we'd like to have everyone aligned who are interested to participate. The program is at 9 to 3. So, and children learn more effectively in the mornings than they do in the afternoons. So if you have a slot, I think it's between an hour and a half. If you have a slot any of those days in the morning and you want to volunteer to help the children with their reading, you are so welcome. And when you do this work, you won't believe the sense of satisfaction and gratitude that comes when you realize that you taught a child not being able to read to be able to read in 9 weeks. So that's a challenge. Look forward to hearing from each of you. Thank you. Ages of the kids. Ages of the children are elementary and middle school. So we start at 7, and I don't know what the sign up is yet right now, but it'll be between elementary and middle school. We will have some other programs for high school, but that'll be at our other center down the road. And we do have the early learners at the other center. And we have 3 other schools that we're going to be having programs in. But the one here is where we're looking to get the help with the readers. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right, so I'm going to touch base on something that we just covered our last meeting, which is now the results for the elections that came in. And so these are going to be the new city council members for the next term. So just know it's got some new faces. It has a couple faces that you're familiar with, but just know that based on the elections, it is now completed. Something that I wanted to kind of touch on is that the Tampa Heights underperformed in voting. If you go and look at how many of our residents showed up, It's kind of interesting. So I wanted to show this really quickly because I think it's really important that we know kind of where this is and how things happen. So we are right here. We are in pockets around, oops, this is our section. And if we go in a little bit further, you'll actually see kind of how we fell. We are one of the weaker turnouts. And taking note of this is like one of the easiest way that we can get representation and funding in our area is by showing up to the polls. So places that show up to the polls get more attention from public officials. So the best and easiest thing we can do is actually activate ourselves and show up to the polls. So I just wanted to kind of be mindful, like this is kind of where we are. And if you look around us in all of South Tampa, they did a really good show up at the polls. So just something to keep on your mind next time we have elections. Let me get back to the full screen. We have 3 things coming up tonight that has a pretty nice crowd here. I want to set some rules and some guidelines for how this is going to go. Please note to everybody in the audience, this is a recorded meeting, so you will be recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube account. So please be mindful of that. Also know that we're going to handle any questions and answers in a respectful and organized way. If we start seeing more than 3 or 4 hands show up at one time, I'm going to actually ask people to line up here and we're going to ask questions in queue because it's too hard for us to always scan the crowd, okay? So if we're going to change that format, I'll let you guys know and we'll go over here. Does it make sense? Awesome. We're going to try to limit each speaker to about 10 minutes in respect for everybody's time. So we'll be kind of, it's going to be loose, but that's the goal. All right. So the very first person that we have up here is going to be Adam Harden. He's going to provide an update on the Heights and the Armature works.
Thank you. Good turnout. So thanks for coming out. My name is Adam Harden. I'm a principal of Soho Capital. We are the developer, the owners of the Heights project. So many of you refer to as Armature Works, but essentially the 50-acre master plan development, which is anchored by Armature Works. Does this actually work? Oh, okay. I got you. So I wanted to come tonight and we have a pending request before City Council and at the same time give you a brief update on the on what you'll see next in the Heights. So this. Yeah. Is, yeah, no problem. We'll start. Is it touchscreen? Yeah. So we recently expanded the zoning. It was completed last year to include property on the west side of North Boulevard. So essentially the project boundaries here for those of you to get oriented. This tract is Waterworks Park. This is restaurant is Eulalie. This is Tampa Street, Palm Avenue, Ross, and over to the creek. So in accordance with the development agreement, we've completed the Riverwalk here. At this point, we're to rezone these properties, which we've done. We're working with the city to extend the Riverwalk as an urban trail. Eventually, it should connect back to Blake. The portion that we're working on will cross the road here. We'll come up this side of the Boulevard Bridge, around the roundabout, up to Ross, and over to the linear park in Glenwood. The city picks up that connection there, expanding the mixed-use path up the middle of the Glenwood, drainage bypass median there. And then down the side of Boulevard, my understanding is the profile of that will look similar to, if any of you have seen the recent traffic calming projects on First Avenue North and South in St. Petersburg, that will be a green lane, which will connect down the side of Columbus, over the Columbus Bridge, around the Columbus Court Apartments, and then eventually connect back by the baseball fields behind Just Elementary and the middle school, back to where the Riverwalk currently ends near Boulevard. So that's a fully funded project. Yeah, sorry. That's a fully funded project and is in the queue. It's being designed now. So the update to the zoning. Sorry, it's really weird to talk into a microphone that I can't hear working. It's just not natural. So basically, we pulled in this non-shaded portion of Tract B and the this hotel parcel here, and this small parcel where the Deuce used to sit, if anybody's been here a while. So the entitlements were increased by approximately 400 units to represent the zoning density for this tract. This tract has similar design standards to Tract 1A. These are the R30 portions of the master plan. And basically what we envision over here is mid-rise along Boulevard, fading to the townhome form, a shorter form along the neighborhood side of the property. So the next things we're going to see at the Heights, we're currently working on an apartment tower, which is 24 stories, which will be constructed right here on the end of the parking garage, where you see the blank wall and the doors with chain link over them. The tower goes there. We have permits in hand and are working to get to the tenant critical mass to break ground on the second and really final phase of office, which we're calling Heights 221. This is block 4. So it's a 12-story building. The larger mass of the building's on the south side of the block, and it's oriented this way, facing south. As you know, Heights Union Phase 1 was very successful for the neighborhood. We were able to land the Pfizer World Support Center, Axogen, which is a biomedical tissue company who has their research facility in Gainesville and moved their C-suite from Dayton, Ohio to Florida. They also have a small 9,000 square foot laboratory here. Amwins Insurance, Double Line Bonds, has relocated their California headquarters from Santa Monica to Tampa, and DPR Construction, and I'm missing somebody. I apologize. So, I think that when we, as some of you who are there will recall, when we met back in 2011, I call it kind of the pull the Band-Aid off speech. The Bill Bishop plans failed for a reason. What we need here is a legitimate urban mixed-use development, something that can support a place to eat, get your hair cut, and buy groceries. And so, we've focused on this. We said that the story was going to be about jobs, not a personality-driven development like others that I feel like haven't executed as well. We set out with Armature Works. We have the 16 local vendors here. This is really intended to be the heart of this place. We conducted 450 community activation events here last year, and those are things that are funded by the facility. So, yoga, moms and tots, the outdoor music, yoga, I said yoga in the yard. Stroller yoga, which is on the side of the building, and so on. So, evening paddle boarding, and, I'm sure many of you have participated in these events, but, we felt like that if we built this place, that they would come, and we think that, as a kid who's from Tampa and feels like I rode my BMX bike around down there and presided over the, you know, the undoing, I remember Moss Brothers and CDVs. I remember, it finally got down to the wig shop and Friedman's Jewelry, right? And then it was just the wig shop. And, so to see a chance to put a stitch back in and really attract some new high paying jobs, I think was attractive to us. So, the third phase, which is currently in the queue. So we have permits in hand for the office. We have a couple of pretty good tenant announcements and anticipate being able to break ground on that by summer. The tower is about to go into permit, and we anticipate breaking ground on the tower by the end of the year. The tower is 356 units and has 9,000 square foot retail base. The whole base of the tower is retail, just like you've seen at the Pearl. So Pearl Phase 2 is, again, 7-story on the front, 4-story on the back. Will, be similar in architecture to the Pearl 1. It'll have feature continuous neighborhood serving retail underneath, all along the Palm frontage and along this side of the park. So that's kind of an update here. I think, why don't I stop and take a couple questions on this if you have any, and then we can touch on the AB application that's pending. And oh, sure. So good. So our vision for the development is that the more intense office mixed use is these 3 blocks. So we put the regional garage here, which has the bank and the grocery store. And essentially, as we know, the down ramp comes down Highland, cycles this roundabout, and then the up ramp goes back up Tampa. So our goal, while attracting jobs, was to also not, the portion of the folks that just work here but leave would be able to use the main streets and not really flood the neighborhood. So we see these 3 blocks as office mixed use. This block starts to transition to residential mixed use. Market and Palm will be lined with retail on both sides. And this is, residential. Yes. Right. So, the Market Street and Palm will be lined with retail. So this will be residential mixed use with the retail mixed use lining Palm and Market. Yeah. So we anticipate Pearl Phase 2 will start next spring, and the ground floor retail is currently settling in around the same amount as Pearl Phase 1, which is about 28 to 29,000 square feet. Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. So, oh, this little piece up here. Okay, but it was. Right. So I think, in fact, honestly, there's like one almost dead oak tree on that lot, I believe. We can. So I think that something the scale of the townhomes that are behind it would be probably the most that would go there. And, so, I think we pulled it into the zoning so that it could have the urban design standards and, the minimize the setbacks and give us some flexibility. So, but it's, we currently don't have anything designed for there yet. So, yeah, there's a fairly nice oak in the back corner by the alley. Yeah, understood. Yeah. And so I don't know the answer to that, but I'll email you what's going on in the bottom of the building there. I'll email you the answer later. Yes, sir. You have the holographic. Yes, ma'am. Right. So we've already constructed like close to 2,000 structured parking spots in the project. So actually maybe slightly more, 550 at the Pearl and 1,469 car parking garage on top. So, but as you notice here, there's parking strategically placed throughout the development. So essentially, this is the tower that we discussed. This is the two completed office buildings. This is the office building that's going to break ground here this summer, Pearl 2. You can see actually there's a large courtyard on this and the parking's embedded in that end. It's parking, the parking shared. So, yeah. So, so all these blocks are self-park. So there's a parking there, parking there, parking there, parking there, parking there, right? So. I'm sorry, are you badgering me? Right. So there's 440 on-street parking spaces that we've constructed in the development, and there's currently 2,000 structured parking spaces. And when we're done, there will be significantly more. So I think the goal for quality urban development is to kind of hold the cork in the bottle and build the least amount of parking you can so that it can function and that it can encourage folks to walk, to reduce their carbon footprint, and to use transit. So those are the goals that we are using in pushing the development forward. So which block do you live on? Okay. Yes, correct. This property is now within the plan development zoning. That's correct. Yeah.
Other topic that Adam came in for today was the AV expansion area. So while I talk about it, you can explain what that is.
Oh, well, so I'm happy to email you the plan. It's public record. So if I said, if you, it's not on a website, but okay, awesome. I'll go to the email address on my way out. Yes. Yes, sir. So yes, we've met with some folks. We're trying to, come up with what the best plan there is. So some of the companies that are currently in the space, the rates that they want to charge seem to be somewhat predatory. I mean, we think it's a service, not, shouldn't be something that's, that we lock ourselves down with a for-profit company. It's kind of like negotiating with the cable guys. So we're trying to figure out the best path. Yes, sir. So I would say realistically another 8 to 10 years before all phases are completed. Yes, sir. On the what? So the city has committed to us that there would be a traffic light installed prior to Sprouts opening. And so unfortunately, they would say that, COVID caused a delay, and then the traffic light company that they had under contract went out of business, and that it's now impending going in. So they've poured the foundation for the mast arm, if you notice it out there. And so I would anticipate it being in fairly soon. So. We do. There's a website for the office building. We have not posted a website for the residential tower yet, but we're getting close. And I'm happy to circulate to Matt the website for the office building as a start. It's it's nice. It is, yes, Marriott Moxie. So the first hotel. So we as part of bringing the entitlements up to date, when we rezoned the property in 2013, we felt, while we understood Bill Bishop's plan had failed, and understand why, I think, we didn't feel like it was a time to change the alcohol beverage entitlements. It seemed a bit disingenuous to come in and say that we needed to change that at the time. We figured we would get the street grid fixed and get the place opened up, get Armature working, and then come back and align that. So we initially fixed the zoning in 2013. We came back and made some very minor modifications in 2018 and 2019, and then we made some we added this additional property in 2021. So the Bill Bishop plan for the whole area had 109,000 square feet of AB area, alcohol beverage. So inside alcohol beverage sales area. Because of the way we constructed Armature Works as a large assembly space, we were required to draw down a significant portion of the entitlements, because all the covered space, the courtyard, the restrooms, the common areas all have to be wet zoned. So while as the individual vendors who sell, say, beer, wine at the taco shop, they entitle their little 900 square foot stall, the people have to be able to walk away with the beer and go to, wherever they go has to be legal, and it has to connect to the Riverwalk Specialty Center. So, and then additionally, the Bill Bishop plan did not anticipate a grocery store. It talked about some type of convenience goods location, and I think it had about 5,000 square feet of entitlements. And likewise, when you entitle a grocery store, you have to entitle the whole thing. So you draw down 25,000 square feet, because if somebody gets beer out of the cooler and drives it all around in the store, the whole store has to be wet zoned. So we basically ate into the 109,000 square feet of entitlements significantly with those two uses. So we've come back in. Additionally, this was the 2009 wet zoning, and you can see that the street grid was discontinuous and strangely chicaned here. So, we straightened it out, opened up the whole riverfront for the public. And so we're also realigning this outdoor AB area, which was on that approval, but is now misaligned from the grid. So So I apologize. Matt, can you help me? Technical, one more time. Just the new plan. Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna blind somebody in the audience. All right, I took more than my 10 minutes. I apologize. Yes. So the AB footprint remains relatively the same. We've highlighted the areas here that changed. As you know, with the Pearl Apartments, we did put retail facing the park on the south side of this building. Previously, this line had arbitrarily followed the old platted alley that used to run through the middle of these blocks. So we added that small TIF streets to the wet zoning area. We added the Moxie. This portion of the park is Richard Gonsmart requested that be added. And then essentially this blue line is representative of the old outdoor AB area, and the red line is representative of the new outdoor AB area. So okay, that's as good as I can get it. So the conditions are essentially unchanged. There's a minor change here we can look at. We have a column here, and this is the document that's been filed with the city. This is the previous approval. These are the square footages. These are the new square footages. So you can see that the significant change here is the 60,000 to make up for the space used for Armature, and the 25,000 added for the grocery store. Oh, okay. So this provision allows. This is the additional written allows the engineering. We haven't sought to increase that, nor have we used any of it. So essentially, those are the changes that we've applied for and wanted to present to you. Yes. Yes, ma'am. I can't hear myself in the mic. Yes, ma'am. So, you know, I can tell you that I'm trying, I would question that statistic, but okay. It's certainly very successful, and it's very much more regional than we had anticipated. So, and thank you. You know, I served 4 years on the regional transit board. I got off, I figured maybe I could do more from a bully pulpit if I wasn't on the board, because I could meet with different folks that are on the board. Currently, of course, we've paid in $562 million to the through the option sales tax, which is in an account. A law was passed a year ago after the final court case, and that money was sent to the Department of Revenue for a trust fund. And this year it was supposed to be allocated. So with some electioneering going on, there's opposing bills in the House and Senate. One, the Senate wants to send the majority of it back to Hillsborough County to be spent, and it would be divided pro rata between the cities and the county based on population. Kind of unfair to the city, because I think it really should be more based on windshield miles, and I've attempted to advocate for that. I've met with a bunch of the what I would consider probably Republican community leaders and asked them if they would advocate for us in Tallahassee. I know that a letter was sent. We're not in an environment where an open letter is a good idea, I think. And so hopefully we'll get that money back. I believe that money would be very helpful for the city to work on the streetcar expansion. If I get the chance and anybody listens, I say it's not about the technology, that we need to, as leaders, we need to find the means and let the experts, take care of the mode. But I do believe that a robust, circulator that could connect, the end of the existing streetcar up to the heights and back on short headways would be very successful. I've advocated for that. If Hart would step up, and there's been a lot of issues over Hart recently, as we know from the news. But if we could get that circulator to run to Martin Luther King and turn around and come back down Tampa, then that would be the impetus for FDOT to take the raise grant funds that they have for improvements on Florida and Tampa, which will fund some drainage and sidewalk improvements, but it would allow them to go ahead and take the lane and give us something that looks more like the Sunrunner down First Avenue North. So, in the background, these are the conversations I'm having with folks and what I'm doing to work on it. I, would be happy to pull Matt in and see if the group here can help. I just kind of think us at this point, maybe the more blue people in the room need to keep their heads down and ask the other people who might have sway to do the right thing and send us our $560 million back. So anyway, long answer. I apologize. That it? All right. Well, oh, yes, sir. I think that, it needs to be studied closely, including this potential turnaround for a streetcar or a rubber tire extension of the streetcar. So all of it needs to be looked at closely, and there clearly need to be some improvements at the corner of Tampa. So, I've currently been focused on adding a mid-block pedestrian flasher at Market and Palm and getting this traffic light in. But I'd be open to any suggestions you have about the roundabout. Happy to pass them along to the city. Okay. Yes, we believe that we'll break ground on the hotel by the end of the year. So as you can imagine, in the current financial environment, hospitality is one of the more difficult things to get in the ground. But we're moving forward with the plans. It'll be a solid concrete precast structure. As we know, it's a 6-story stall, and we intend to break ground on it by December. So it's a good question. I went to Representative or Councilwoman Hurtak's watch party last night and mentioned to her that now it was time to roll up our sleeves and get this done. I know that you personally had volunteered for the ad hoc committee to study how we can get a proper mixed use sound ordinance here in the city. And I called Nicole Travis today to ask what the status of that was. I had requested that the mayor appoint the ad hoc committee. Of course, we know the ballot initiative that was on the initial ballot gave the city council some more power to accomplish that. So I don't really care how it gets done, but I think we came forward with a committee of 14 people, 7 neighborhood officers and 3 or 4 developers, including Daryl Shaw and myself, willing to personally serve. And I think that, as we move forward, a plainly audible outdoor standard is clearly not tenable. This is like, the Trouble in River City standard. It's like an appropriate for like downtown Brooksville. We also, I'm of the personal belief that the really high decibel levels that are allowed at the Ice Palace in Ybor City are too high. And yet we have mixed use developments. We're encouraging density to see our corridors get redeveloped, and we need to make sure that we have a proper ordinance in place similar to other big cities. So that's what I'm doing to address it. Right. So I think that what 50%. So what happens is that's the parking. Right. So I think that suggestions, and I hear your question. So the 2 suggestions I would make as solutions would be to identify as development. So I mean, I'll assist. I mean, I have some, I can call some people, right? I mean, when we started our development, you know, Glenwood, yeah. So So I'll make a point here. So when we rezoned in 2013, there was significant concern that people would fly down Palm Avenue at like 50, 60 miles an hour and then cut through Ridgewood. So, we requested with our development agreement that the first 600,000 of impact fees we paid would go to a traffic calming project in Ridgewood, which has just been completed. So I went to the ribbon cutting for it. So all the improvements on Ridgewood were paid for by the impact fees that we paid, the traffic mitigation fees. And my take on that was, if I'm paying traffic mitigation fees, I don't want them spent somewhere else, right? They need to mitigate the traffic. So I'm happy to, to work with those guys. I saw Vic Bede, who runs mobility, tonight riding his bike home. I passed him. So but always stops would be a good solution on some of the key intersections there, and likewise, I would agree with Matt that the parking program works. And, the parking program, the resident only parking program, is now run with license plate reader technology, and you can have your parking spots and your tags entered, and then you can have a guest so that if somebody comes and visits you, you enter their tag on your phone. And I have a similar arrangement when I visit a house in Pasadena, and at first I didn't like it. I just want a hang tag, and somebody comes over, I want to hand it to them. And now I'm like, oh, this is great. No one drives off with the hang tag. It's so easy. And once you've entered your friend, they're already in there. So the next time you just hit their number. And so, I would encourage it. I think that the on-street parking would be traffic calming. And once people, and the city has significantly increased the parking fines. And so once people get one, they stop. They won't come up there anymore. And if they don't have if they're not looking for parking, I would think less people would drive through there. So those would be my thoughts. And I'm happy to push on any of that if y'all just tell me what your consensus is. All right. So I know there's a presentation after me, and I don't want to take up too much time. So I got 2 more minutes, is it? So the parking garage on top of Sprouts is a 1,469 car parking garage. I hate to even admit I built it, but I had to. Okay. All right. Hey, thank you guys.
Let me work on that. Let me find a place to put that. And if we can find a place we can put that to share that. We don't have that resource available right now with the association, but let's get creative and figure something out. We can do it. We're capable. I promise. All right. So the next speaker we have up is going to be Tandem, Campbell Street, and I think there's architects. Oh, Baker's Barrios is here to do that. So I'm going to change this over and I'm going to get you guys on your screen.
I'll get started and we'll be able to keep to our 10-minute time frame pretty easily, since we're kind of representing a project that we've already presented. So what you're looking at here is the intersection of Columbus and Tampa. We're actually representing this project. We originally presented our conceptual plans back in September of last year. Since then, we've gone through a pretty significant community outreach effort. We had a Meet the Developer event in November. We have most recently, after going through the process with DRC, 2 rounds with DRC, presented to the Tampa Heights Civic Association Land Use Committee and the board. And here we are today to present, like I said, represent a project that should be somewhat familiar, I think, to the community, since this is very consistent with what we presented the last time, with a few changes. Largely, our architectural design, we were able to dig in since last September and put some good design aesthetic behind what we plan to develop here, as well as a few modifications to the building that we really had to do from a code standpoint, thanks to DRC. But what you're looking at here is the intersection of Tampa and Columbus. Our overall business plan is really the same as it was back in September. It's a mixed-use building. We have 252 apartments, 9,000 square feet of retail. We're actually able to add a few parking spaces. Right now, our parking count is 330 spaces as opposed to 317, which is what we presented last September. We have 10% of our building dedicated to affordable housing in this project. And yeah, and then from an overall like enhancement standpoint, we always looked at this site as an opportunity to make Columbus a safer, more pedestrian friendly stretch of sidewalk, because it's a little terrifying to walk down today. So we're widening the sidewalks. We actually set our building back several feet on Columbus compared to how it was last September, to create some landscape buffers, which I'll show you in a rendering along the sidewalk scape. Also made for a wider retail plaza. And we virtually eliminated every curb cut, or most of the curb cuts along Columbus, to again make that a more safer, pedestrian friendly experience. With that, and by the way, everything I'm presenting today is online. So if anyone wants to take a look at that, it is on tampaheights.org. And I'm happy to talk with Matt about possibly posting my personal email and cell phone number in case anyone wants to reach out with any questions or comments or concerns. I'm happy to field those personally and incorporate that to my team. But overall, what we're looking at, one of the big changes that we did have to make going through the process with DRC was separating the uses between the alley here. So this is an alley that cuts east-west halfway through the site. It's an existing alley now. We're widening it. We're going to redo the alley, activate it, make it better lit and more just safer and pedestrian friendly. But we did have to separate the uses between the north of the site and the south of the site. So we have ground floor parking on the north side with 7 stories of apartments above it. It's the same height as what we presented in September. It's 89 feet tall, but it's 8 stories within 89 feet tall. And then we actually were able to have the opportunity to scale down the side of the site that goes south of the alley to 5 stories. So we actually took that down 2 stories from the original concept that was presented back in September. And then from an aesthetic standpoint, you know, we really, and Eric is with Baker Barrios, they're our architect on our team. We really tried to design a building that looks like it was meant to be in Tampa Heights. So you'll see along the streetscape, and I'll show another image of this, that we tried to kind of take inspiration from neighborhood buildings that had more masonry and, you know, kind of take a more sort of traditional approach at the ground level. And that carries around, you'll see, through all the way down Columbus as well as down Florida. And going through the process with the land use committee and the board, we were given some great feedback, all of which we tried to incorporate. So we carried the same aesthetic all the way down Tampa to the parking garage, so it looks less like a parking garage. And then we did activate the first floor of the parking structure so that it doesn't look like you're staring directly into a garage. So we actually incorporated a bike storage, bike parking area in the garage portion of the building, and carried that same sort of storefront aesthetic all the way down Tampa. So it looks like one cohesive building. Now, this is an image that faces, this here is Tampa. So this faces the parking structure itself. Another really good piece of feedback we got from the board and some other members around the community was this section here of the parking garage and this portion of the wall. So we're actually engaging a local Tampa firm, Clarity, to help us with art placement. And we're trying to take the approach for this, which is really a placeholder for now, as just a really great opportunity as a blank canvas to try to put something here that sort of speaks to Tampa, looks like it belongs. And we're very excited to be a part of and contribute to the overall Tampa Heights art community and art movement that we see happening in the neighborhood. So we saw that as being a really good opportunity for us to, make a contribution that way and try to design something that looks, again, less like a garage and more like something that really belongs and has a place. So with that, those are pretty much the high bullet points for our project. I'm going to hand it over to Lauren, who's handling retail, and she's the retail expert, and she can kind of speak to what we envision for the retail space along Columbus.
Thank you. Will you go back to that Columbus and Tampa? Oh, perfect. That one's even better. Hi. So as Josh mentioned, we're going to have about 9,000 square feet of retail on the ground floor here. My background is in placemaking, hospitality, and retail tenanting. My job is going to be to make this a place you guys want to go as much as our tenants upstairs want to go. And part of the way that we did that was we worked really closely with our architects to make the space easily dividable or divisible so that we can have the most amount of small format retail possible. I've had a lot of engagement with local and regional tenants, one-offs, people in this neighborhood who are looking to relocate into better spaces, people in surrounding neighborhoods who see the value of being here, and people who have existing concepts, who have other ideas or dreams about second and third concepts, who want to take space near to you all. My goal here is to basically provide you a walkable block that's going to provide daily needs. So we all love Armature Works. It's fantastic. It's well activated. It has really incredible retail happening inside of it and great hospitality. But as we heard from Adam, and as you all know, it's very regional and it has a regional draw. You're a small neighborhood. You need neighborhood retail. So I'm hoping that I can fill that void. And so you're not going to have to traipse across 40 acres of parking lot to get a cup of coffee. I envision coffee shop, a dog food store, maybe a wine bar, just trying to find soft goods retailers to bring in. And I made this announcement last September, and I'll say it again. If anyone in the room has a business that's looking for space and wants to talk to me, I'm totally open and love talking about this space. I've had a lot of feedback from brokers and from tenants in our market who are excited to have space here. And one of the things that they're the most excited about, besides the obvious they'd get to be in Tampa Heights, is the idea that we have this great covered area, that we have big wide sidewalks for them to bring either retail out the front door onto the street, or if it's a food and beverage or hospitality, they love the idea of being able to have outdoor seating that's covered and protected from sun and rain. And of course, making Columbus a more safe place to walk. They're really engaged with that concept too, because I think they see the value in Columbus as an artery for retail long-term. And we just need to get some good placemaking happening. And I'm hoping that this can set a standard for what comes behind us. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our architect. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the materials we're using, and then we can have questions. Yeah.
Hello there. Yeah, we try to incorporate the traditional brick, if you will, that is seen around Tampa Heights and bring down the scale so that the pedestrian activity feels like you're at home, essentially, or in a neighborhood. We also feel that the activating the retail becomes an amenity for the neighborhood. So the idea is this is a place the neighborhood is coming to as well. Yeah, I think we all agree it's a pretty nice project and a positive thing for the neighborhood.
So the developers worked with us pretty closely for the last almost 6 months on this and got feedback. And one of the things that Lauren had spoken to, but I thought was important is that retail is travel.
You're right. I missed that. Yeah. So traditionally, thank you. Thanks for the reminder. So traditionally with retail space in a development like this, you're going to see, first of all, a lot less of it, right? Often you look for developers, they're going to ask for variances on their retail because they're making their money upstairs on the second floor, whether that's office, whether that's hotel, or if it's mixed use, or if it's multifamily, right? So they try and deliver bare minimum of retail. It's nothing personal usually. It's just economically speaking, it's hard for them to figure out how to do that. So with our project being able to deliver so much, that's a really good point, Matt, that I did bring up in some of our meetings. The other cool thing, or what I think is cool about this, is that they are shallow depth retail. So a lot of times you'll notice this if you go to like a Chipotle or a Blaze Pizza or whatever, they're very long. We call them bowling alleys in retail, and they have a tendency to be 30, 40, 50 feet deep. And so you have very narrow storefronts. Maybe you get a door and one piece of glass, or if you're really lucky, you get two pieces of glass on either side of the door. And that's it. And it's just dark in there, and you have to walk all the way to the back to engage. And so when you're outside as a pedestrian or a bicyclist or in your car, a lot of times you're like, gosh, is that place open? Oh, I don't know. We already passed it. Let's keep going. And that is detrimental, especially for local retailers, to have spaces that don't seem active, right? So like we all know the rule in New York City, you see a line, you get in it. It doesn't matter what it's for. Same concept here. Having the shallow depth, but giving the same amount of space, but giving it long ways, gives my tenants more window space. So if you're a dress shop, right, you have more opportunities to put mannequins in the windows. If you are a coffee shop, there's more opportunities for well-lit tables where people looking in can see activity inside and people looking out can see outside, right? So they like that. So trying to deliver something that psychologically makes sense and that draws additional revenue for our tenants is really important. And part of the way you can do that is you can do that with how you place your retail and how much light you're giving those spaces. So that's the other thing that's here. And then I think that kind of covers it. But thank you, Matt.
And in the board meetings and brought to their attention is that if you drive around Tampa Heights, you'll see the murals all over. As you go down Tampa Street, you see all the murals. And like, how do you incorporate something like a boring parking garage into something that actually makes sense? And the feedback was accepted. So some of these things have already been going on for months and months and months, and they've been a really good partner with the community to try to engage with us and do things that the citizenry is looking for. So that's just my.
Traffic on Columbus. So I'll take that one. So we are eliminating curb cuts all along Columbus, which should help facilitate traffic flow and keep traffic going. Pardon? There's just one. No, but it's a reason why traffic slows down and interrupts the flow of traffic.
I mean, I'll take it. I mean, Columbus is a problem, right? And unfortunately, we don't control any of those roads as developers or as citizens. The best that we can do is work with you guys in tandem to bring up these issues with FDOT, with the city, and to make those necessary changes and to petition for those changes. I mean, I think primarily two things that we can do and that we can control and that we're working on is number one, eliminating those curb cuts, except for the singular cut left, right? And then the second thing that we do is we bring a lot of that traffic down here to this garage. So when you do have people circulating on Columbus that are coming to this site, they're not stopping traffic up here typically. They're actually coming way down Tampa Street. And remember, the next nearest light is quite a ways down. So you're not going to back up this Tampa Street light either, right? And you'll have this circulation come off of Columbus and enter the garage in a portion of Tampa Street that can handle it better than the portion of Columbus could handle it. So it's not perfect, and it's not going to be. But if you have any good ideas, we'd be open to hearing them. And of course, like I know this neighborhood. Oh, okay. I bet you have some good ideas. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a math question.
Yeah, they're like 12 feet tall, all the way from the lead, just like from MLK all the way down. Oh, sorry. From MLK all the way down to almost like where Eulalie is. So what's happening is all the interior streets are draining onto Tampa and Florida, and they realize this. So FDOT through a raise grant, what was it? There's a grant that was used for that. Yeah, it's federal raise grant, is addressing those issues, and it's going to start. I have to look at the timeline, but we'll go look some more meetings. But that's outside of their purview. Is actually with FDOT took care of that.
We will be placing a vault underneath the parking that will absorb the water from our site.
Sure. We'll handle that in engineering, and actually through the DRC process, stormwater and drainage did come up as a specific point that we had some back and forth with. So it's on our radar, and it's definitely being contemplated and addressed. In all likelihood, we plan to break ground if possible by the end of the first quarter of next year. So we're still probably nearly a year out. It'll be a while, and we haven't closed on the site yet. But yeah, there will be ample notice for the businesses that are there, prior to anything starting, for sure. Understood. For that, in all candor, I'd have to follow up on that question specifically. But I will say an anticipated realistic construction timeline for us would be to start sometime late first quarter of next year. And it's about a 20-month construction project, which would take us probably to the end of 2024. So I know that doesn't, I'm sorry, the end of 2025. So I know that doesn't perfectly coincide with what FDOT may or may not do between now and then. But I'd really have to. Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Yeah. Of course, right.
Yeah, you had a question, Lyle.
We haven't really contemplated anything specific in that respect, but we do realize that that's a trend, right? Not a trend right now, but that is where things are going. So, yeah, we really leaned into bicycle parking because that's what people are using, electric vehicles, compact vehicles. So that's certainly, again, on our radar and part of our plan. Yeah. Good question. I'm sorry I didn't mention that at first. So it's a combination studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, 91 studios, 105 1 beds and 56 2 bedrooms. So it's largely studios and 1 bedrooms. The parking garage will enter off of Tampa. Yeah. I got you. Yeah, that actually is something that was brought up during our the process with the Tampa Heights Civic Association. We actually just had a call last week, Friday, about the trees that we plan to use and having shade trees. And we know Tampa Heights is very hot and very sunny. Our arborists that we're working with, local arborists for the entitlement process of our project, had a very good suggestion for, and forgive me, I'm not an arborist or a landscape architect, but a 5-year pruning plan commitment. Where in the first 5 years of planting the tree, you train the tree to grow and mature in the best way possible. So that's something that we're looking at in addition to what species of trees we'll use to create and provide as much shade as possible. Yeah, I know you had a question. Mm-hmm. You want to speak to that? Do you want me to speak to that? I can speak to that.
Yeah, what's the ratio? But then I'll talk about the ratio.
Yeah, so we have 1.3 parking spaces per unit, and I understand where you have. Right, so our unit breakdown did go into our parking ratio plan, where when we have so many studios and 1 bedrooms, again, just like the likelihood of people having more than one car, I realize that households do, but given our concentration of studios and smaller, more efficient units, 1.3 per unit is really the feedback that we've gotten from other property management companies.
The number for retail. I don't have the retail in front of me, so I'll have to answer you on the exact count per retail. But what I can tell you is that typically, when you have a mixed use project that includes multifamily and retail, the overlap where you have both everyone at home and the retail open, it's not usually how it works. Now, I understand that work from home is a trend, Zoom calls, all of this. I absolutely understand that that is going to happen, but with regards to the retail, I do think one thing that we could talk about though also is that, thank you for pulling this up. Yeah, so this is the garage, but this one curb cutout, and gosh, that's bright. This one curb cutout here on Columbus, this parking here is basically dedicated to the retail. So you're separating the retail parking uses from the residential parking uses, but we still have this excess parking, right? So when this empties out and everyone goes to work, there's additional parking for retail when everything's open, and at night when everyone's home, there's still dedicated retail parking. So there's not going to be a perfect solution here without going 12 stories on a parking garage, but we're doing our best with what we're given, and I think we're making it work. Yeah. Did you have a Yes. 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 Yeah. Yes, and I love that. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely understand your perspective and I appreciate it. And I cannot agree more. Like we have to, and it's not just Tampa Heights, it's this entire city, right? I find myself on transit board after transit board pushing the same thing. I am with you. I am local here. I feel the pressure too. We're doing the best we can with the site that we have in the moment that we're in. But I totally agree. I think that, and it's my fault for having to have you say that out loud, not me say it up here, but absolutely the driving force for the ground floor here, from my perspective that I've worked with the architects and my partners on, is to make sure that this is pedestrian and bicycle forward and cars next. I don't, my goal is to make this so desirable for you that you want to walk with your friend to this coffee shop, that you want to come with your child and pick up dog food on a bike or whatever, and not have to get in your car because you don't feel it's safe enough to traverse the 2 or 3 blocks from your home. So thank you for that question. It's a great question. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We're not doing that one anymore. I heard that might be framework group, so we'll have to get their phone number. Yeah. We'll get them at. Go ahead. Let's go.
We don't have a curb cut. We do have an easement that the city asked us to have on the corner that would be for specifically for public transportation signage. Yes, it would. Okay. Hmm? Yeah. Sure. Yep, I can definitely speak to that. So there was a disconnect, and I've spoken with our neighbor a few times as recently as this morning. We've been talking with and engaging with the board since last summer. We presented to this group in September. And all along, it's been a 250 plus or minus unit development. It's never been 82. The disconnect is we had a comp plan amendment at City Hall in November, and it was a city slide that stated that the zoning change would allow up to 82 units. And that was based on a units per acre density, not units per FAR density. And we're building to FAR, not per acreage. So I'm certainly not accusing the city of Tampa of presenting misleading information or a confusing slide, but it was their slide where they didn't show the optionality that the developer has. And that's where the confusion was. So I actually spoke with this neighbor earlier today and cleared that up. Yep.
That one or the full, not raw. Oh, wait. Yeah, sorry, yeah, okay. So, like there's the quick egress and egress. I know there's concern by the buffering neighbors about Harden. But I guess that's gonna be a way fine, right? At that egress and egress, there's going to be wonderful signage that tells people right up the parking lot. So that when they get in there, or they don't even try to come in there to go to that parking. And it also, it's kind of, so when they enter there,
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Good.
Anything else on that?
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. So 10% of the, yep. So 10% of the building, 10% of the building will be dedicated for affordable housing. Of that, half of the 10%, so 5% of the building will be at 80% AMI or average median income, and half of that 5% of the building will be 120% AMI. And that's a price point that's set by the city of Tampa that adjusts annually and is based on the average median income for the city of Tampa. Yeah. Our average unit size, I mean, to give you perspective, for one bedrooms are about 700 square feet, studios 520 square feet, two bedrooms about 1,000. So they are smaller, more efficient units in general, which generally makes them on a chunk price relatively more affordable than maybe larger units might be. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So again, it all comes down to average median income. And when we deliver this building in 3 years from now, it's difficult to gauge right now what average median income is going to be and what rent levels are going to be. But I'd be happy to follow up with you with what the current AMI and the current rent levels per unit size would be. And I can get you that information right away. I can get your info. Yeah. That's a great question, and I'd really like to follow that up with a more intelligent answer as a follow-up question, if that's okay. You know, the way our site is laid out is it's relatively conducive as a development site to stage it in various ways, especially given that we have the separated uses on the south side of the site. So obviously as minimal of disruption as possible, but I can get you a much more detailed response. And here.
And the actual building, the residential component of it is a C shape like this. So there's a very good possibility that we can actually stage right here on our actual property and not affect Columbus at all. And I'm not the contractor, but there is a large portion here that I would assume a crane. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, this is all unobstructed to the sky. So that's a good staging area, I would suggest. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to look at it with our engineers and architects and see how we might be able to accommodate something like that. But again, as we looked at the overall site and the needs of you know, the city and the neighborhood, you know, it's something that we can certainly take a look at. Yeah. Sure. No, that's a great question. So candidly, right now we're working on our on unit layouts, individual unit layouts. We've got the massing for the building, and we're kind of playing around right now with actual layouts. But we definitely look to efficiency. We tried to take an approach for the overall building of a non-cookie cutter, you know, property, and that'll go from both the exterior as well as into the interior. So, yeah, I appreciate the comment, and we'll definitely keep that in mind. In the
I will take that. I'm hoping that this instigates other people to do something at similar scale in a conscious way, and specifically the ground floor and the placemaking and the pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, wider sidewalks, shaded trees. So we yeah, so we tried to do another site at the same time, you know, bite off a lot. And it ended up having some issues that we couldn't overcome. And it's my understanding, though, please don't take this as Bible, that another group has picked that up. That would be the Florida Columbus site that was brought up earlier. Excuse me. And I've been having some conversations with some of the folks who own significant land holdings across Columbus on the north side. So I think that everybody in the neighborhood who has, I'll call it medium to large scale holdings, they're paying attention now. And I think that they're looking, you know, they're aware of this project, and they're aware of this, I'm going to call it the sister project, but it's not our project anymore, at Florida and Columbus, and they're paying attention. And I think understanding for them what happens here and what happens at Florida and Columbus is going to define what it is they're going to seek. And I think you're going to start to see additional improvement along Columbus specifically, which I think is good, because I know that collectively as a neighborhood, you guys have voiced concerns about having garages and townhomes facing Columbus, and that you're really looking to put your density where it belongs. And so I'm hoping that this becomes a catalyst for the proper kind of development along that streetscape. That'll just make all this better. So we don't have any specific projects ourselves, but I'm really hopeful we're going to get neighbors soon. Any more online? No? Anybody else? Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. We appreciate it. And we are going to transition over to another topic. This one just came to hi. No. It echoes. So neighbors have sent, there's been a barrage of messages in the last, almost since November, and there's been an uptick in it again in the last couple of days regarding Grand Cathedral and some violations of AB code, noise ordinance issues, parking, and other things. So we wanted to bring this to the attention of the community and everybody around that area to look for solutions on what might be possible to make that a win-win. Obviously, we want organizations and we want interesting businesses in our neighborhood. We also need to make sure that our residents stay comfortable. And this is going to be an ongoing topic. So we're seeking input from the community as to possible solutions and to bring this to the city officials to see what's possible to bring it in line. With that being said, I wanted to open up to the audience, see if there's any specific concerns that we can note that will be helpful in those conversations. There will be ongoing dialogue to see what's possible. But as of right now, we wanted to talk to the community first. Noise, primarily noise, parking. If you ever notice on that street, it's really super narrow, and that's where they're doing car pickup and drop off and valet service, which creates a little bit of an issue. It's also been brought up to the board that it could be a safety issue for fire department because it's really narrow, and to get through there if they need to is gonna be really difficult. And then the other thing that has been kind of discussed is the way that that property was zoned and it was brought to get its licensing did not have outdoor consumption. There's a portion of that property that is done as residential and not is not included in the AB licensing. So yeah. So being that Ryan was the president before me and started off with this, he is better in tune, and I'm getting myself caught up with it.
No, it's fine. Just because I know you're asking a little bit about the specifics, I want to give a very brief, just quick history of kind of what's going on. So Grand Cathedral Cigars opened, I think perhaps 4 years ago. And this is kind of factual, not an opinion. They opened without proper permitting in place. And so that kind of slipped past the community. They went back and got what's an AB2, alcohol beverage 2 type rezoning, at which point they did engage with the board and this whole civic association. They came and met several times with the group, heard different things from neighbors. They have specific rules in place for noise, hours of operation, as well as anytime you go through alcohol zoning, you are tied to specifically where you can serve alcohol. And it has been documented that they are serving alcohol outside of where they're allowed to. It's also come to light that they did a lot of improvements to the building that are without permit. So those are just simple factual things that have been recorded. Everybody's got to play fair. There are some issues ongoing with some of the surrounding neighbors. So in the background, the board of the Civic Association has been trying to broker some of those conversations. I myself have had conversations with the management and several investors of Grand Cathedral in the background, trying to make sure that things are copacetic and that they're coming to compliance with the rules. And so that's still ongoing. Residents on the surrounding block say they are not. There's documentation they have not. So that is where it is at. They have been found and cited for operating out of compliance with these things. It appears the city is giving them opportunity to come into compliance. So that is the history of where we have come. However, again, we have heard from surrounding residents that they are continuing to break the rules. And so this is where we are trying to say, look, stop escalating this. Let's bring if you can come into compliance and do it the right way, even, retroactively, and everybody can be happy and be good neighbors, that's the best outcome from our board's perspective, but it is just not there yet. So does that help? That's sort of the history of it. But where we're seeking now is additional input from other folks that may have interactions or experience with what's going on at Grand Cathedral. Yes, Jeremy. Yep, sorry. Ricky, I know you've had your hand up. I'm not sure we ever supported the AB2. I think we removed our opposition. We initially were opposed to the AB2. I'd have to go back and look at our official action. What's that? Sure. I mean, the board, absolutely. The board can vote to take any sort of action. So I don't want to tread on your territory, but this is crossed administrations here.
We have our board meeting, which is going to be in almost less than 2 weeks, then that is something that we can definitely put on the agenda. If the community is asking for that, we can definitely put it out there and put a vote in. And if the board votes in favor of removing our support for an AB2, absolutely.
Sorry, the AB2 passed.
But he's asking some.
AB2. Sure. Yes. Agreed.
We can definitely have it and bring it in front of the board for a vote. I do. Yeah, absolutely. If, I mean, the membership's asking for it, that's something that we're called to do completely. Ma'am.
I had to hear from South Tampa, and I was a very close neighbor to the patio on the field and the here. I'm just gonna throw it out there. We might talk to the TV and the city and policy of time to open the patio.
Almost see a Pines. Okay.
And discuss with them. They did with the patio, I don't know where it stands now, because I've been here for 4.5 years, but it's exactly the same situation. But the cabin, this area is probably not the same problem. So that's what I'm saying, I was talking to those, because the neighbors had a correct number for the officer that was all that area, and he got phone calls 24/7. But it was the same.
Same deal. It's right. That got purchased. That's controlled by them. So the intention of this is to get it on the radar of the community. Like, this is something, and we have to work it all as a community. Like, do we want to lose a business? No. Do we want to broker something that works for everybody? Absolutely. If that doesn't happen, we need to go the other route, which is like, how do we enforce what's on there so that the community, which was here first, and this is one of the biggest things we talked about, which is before you existed, the neighborhoods were here. It was an office park and it was amazing and quiet. This is supposed to be an enhancement, yet the neighbors are not happy about it because of the way they've been treated. So it's going to go back to that same conversation we started with 3 years ago. Right, correct. Correct. Right, right. Right. The membership methodology went away. So the parking originally was going to be that it was a membership only club. And then that went away and became open to the public. And that's kind of how it's morphed through the process. Right. So I think Ricky's got a good recommendation for us at our board meeting to bring this forward and to take a vote. But I just want to put on everybody's radar, make sure that the community kind of knew what was going on so that it didn't come out of the blue.
For me, the biggest concern is also the light safety and the light safety issues. I'm sure a lot of square everything right now. The neighbors coming down. You know, the property that Campbell were drifting over. I live about 60 feet away. They did it on the mortgage side. Unpermitted electrical, unpermitted plumbing. And our what just seems like
Recipe for disaster.
maybe it won't have an effect, but I'm honestly, I think I'm a big fan. First, like to say we have to be out of it. Yeah, even look at it, maybe not close it, but just like, hey, I just think it's, I mean, I just think it's, you know, that place goes up to flying, like people die and everything else. Yeah, the city didn't go out. You know, for like 4 years. That's required. I mean, it's amazing that the city decides that they're like basically to the student and we're the time to extend. Well, I think it's more about for those who do experience and we have no time to get out of the we do all of the stuff and we kind of keep up.
Right. Correct. So I think it's a valid point. I think it's something for the board to look into and like, all right, here's our starting point. Here's where we can go from it. You know, the message is very clear from people showing up here that they're not happy. So it's gonna be an ongoing conversation. It'll be on the agenda for the board meeting. So we'll keep you guys updated as that go. Please show up to our meetings so we can keep talking about this. So it stays in front of everybody. All right, so we are going to go through the report section of the kind of keep everybody on the same page. I know that Kareem doesn't have any updates on the CRA. Rick said that they are still tearing apart Elmore, so we can always get an update from him next time. Billy left. Okay. Lena, do you have any updates for the Tampa Heights Junior Civic Association?
So this discussion is really timely. One of the things that I have volunteered to be a part of, and several of us, is increasing our membership, not to THCA, but I'll do this first. Increasing our membership for our civic association. Our membership is really, really low. And when you see issues like we discussed tonight, it's the volunteers who are put their time and all their effort in to answer questions, to make the connections, all the things that we talked about tonight. We really need to increase our membership. There are more and more of these projects that come by, and we have to deal with them. But when we don't have a good membership that we could fill a room, or when Matt or Brian has to go before city and show that we actually have people who are behind us, we really need to be able to demonstrate that. So over the next month or so, we're going to start our membership drive. And please, anyone who has not signed up, it's very easy. Well, it's supposed to be very easy to just get on the site and sign up and be a part of the membership so that you could actually get involved and show a presence when we need you. The Junior Civic Association, I mentioned about our summer program. Well, in order to have summer program, we must have money to be able to pay the staff and to have the children here, provide their activities, their food and everything. On the 19th of May, please make a note of this. On the 19th of May, it's a Friday evening. We're going to have a Tampa Heights ensemble that's going to perform right here. It's going to be awesome. And that's a fundraiser for the summer program. We're also going to have an arts-based, we'll also have art-based vendors who are going to be here at the same time, and they are really planning an awesome program. It's a fundraiser, and so Matt is going to send out all the information on it, and you could join and you could connect and become a part of that event. It's going to be awesome. I mentioned already that our program is going to be in 3 different schools, and the other information I already shared with you. Thank you.
Miss Faith, do you have any updates for the Southeast Quad? Any updates? I'm sorry, Northeast, I'm sorry. Nope, just go social media. Is Paul here? Paul's gone. All right, Brian, any updates on the land use committee? Tony stepped out.
Really briefly, the land use committee, one of our most active committees, we meet monthly online via Zoom. Our next meeting will be on Wednesday, May 3rd at 11 a.m. The committee is open to anybody that wants to participate or join. Just reach out to us generally at Tampa Heights Civic Association at gmail.com. What we do is several of the things you heard from the night. The two guest presenters, those are issues that our committee, which right now I think is about 7 or 8 people, engages with on the front end. So those developers, as soon as we hear about anything going on, we receive the plans, we give feedback. We're composed mostly of builders, architects, real estate agents, and folks that are in the industry. So we've got experience. My background's in construction management. And so we give very detailed industry, concentrated type feedback to them, but we want to reflect what the greater neighborhood feels also. So the normal way that, and there's a lot of change going on in Tampa Heights. Because that's why this committee is important, is that we want to make sure that our neighborhood plan from 20 years ago is seen through to fruition, as well as, we need to work on updates to the vision for what's going on here, but that the voices around the neighborhood are heard through that. So things normally go through land use committee, then the board, and then they come to the general meeting like this. So the two issues you've heard about tonight have already gone through the land use committee. Along with just generally, I don't think we have we have a few new planning and zoning notices, but nothing that has become major that's come up. And then the only other major issue we've been working on for the last since 2019, so 4 years now, is a new overlay code amendment, a new overlay district for Tampa Heights, covers the entire neighborhood. It's been delayed several times with the city, not for bad reason, but city staff wants to continually revise that here. We've held numerous workshops. We've talked about it a lot of time on the Tampa Heights website, tampaheights.org/overlay-district. We continually post updates to here. And it talks about some of what we want to accomplish. The major goal is having a more walkable community that is urban and dense friendly, but also respects the historic development pattern that occurs here in the neighborhood. Want to reduce dependence on cars, make it more walkable and safer neighborhood. So we've dug down and found some specific code provisions about how to do that. So it's been delayed again. Now it's supposed to go before the Planning Commission in August, most likely City Council the following month if it passes Planning Commission. City has asked for a few more changes that we've got to process to that. So we'll be working with them still on that, as well as that was just good because now there's been a changeover in city council members who we spent years talking to about this. There's some new council members that have no idea what this is. And so it was going to come to their vote in June initially, and they're unfamiliar with this. So we wanted to take a little bit more time, educate some of the new council members. But this is posted online. You can read all about it there. If you have any specific questions, please reach out to us. Yes, Lena. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. That's another big provision of what we want to accomplish. This will allow accessory dwelling units by right in RS, so residential single family zones. So right now, everything south of Columbus plus a little bit north of Columbus is multifamily, but a little beyond that, the majority of northern Tampa Heights is all residential single family. You cannot build an in-law suite or garage apartment. It's very difficult. And if you can get through that process, I believe it still has to be family occupied. And so to turn into either a rental property or an Airbnb or, you know, additional income for the property owner, but also additional affordable housing in small units. So this is something our association has been big time behind. City staff's been big behind it as well, but it continually gets kicked around like a political football. We're sticking with it. We want to allow what's called ADUs throughout the whole neighborhood. And so that's a big portion of this too, to welcome that sort of small, extra affordable density. Yes. This covers the entire neighborhood of Tampa Heights, which our borders go up to MLK, down to the interstate on the other side to North Boulevard. That's official Tampa Heights. Yes, back there. Not from a community-led standpoint. So Seminole Heights has what's called a form-based code district, and that was created in 2011. Tampa Heights was one of the next neighborhoods on that list that was supposed to get this. The city, due to pandemic era staffing and budgets and a variety of other reasons, never fulfilled this promise. And so that's why this organization picked up the ball and ran with it. Yes. Mhm. I totally understand. My personal feeling, on one hand, we've got to get more housing units because that'll allow more things for owner occupied to live here. We still got a lot of vacant land in our quadrant, you know, still a lot of places that are in need of some work. So that's kind of on one hand, if you know, that'll offset some of the Airbnb effect. Airbnb and short-term rentals specifically, you know, from what I understand, there's actually some state laws that preempt, and I don't know all the details, but some state laws that preempt what local governments can do to regulate that. That I think those types of companies have successfully lobbied for those protections to limit those types of things. I know municipality by municipality can maybe do some different things. I'm not the most knowledgeable on that. I know that we cannot tackle in this organization and through this vehicle anything to do with Airbnb or short-term rentals. Yes.
But I love that you're asking questions because guess what? We're a volunteer organization. People like you to get involved in the neighborhood. So like, if you feel passionate about that topic, please come to us. If you have expertise in this, please come to us. Like all of us have real other jobs. Like I have three companies I run. Like I can't do this alone. So having people in this room that will step up and say, hey, I'm not going to come with complaint. I'm going to come with solution and actually even volunteer my time. That's huge because we can't do it alone. So the other thing too is if we can get additional funds in our coffers, we might be able to actually get a admin to help run the day-to-day that makes it so difficult for us to get our schedules completed. So this is definitely what that's about, which is that we're a volunteer organization. We're looking for help in any way possible. Please reach out and help us. And with that, it is just after 9 o'clock and we are adjourned. Thank you guys for attending tonight. We appreciate it. Please help us with your chairs.